Welcome to the Elite BSC podcast, where our entire focus is helping commercial janitorial contractors succeed. You want a growing company, a thriving team, and healthy profits, and we are here to help. My name is Jordan Tong. I'm the founder of Elite BSC, a company dedicated to helping janitorial companies grow and thrive. I also serve as CEO and one of the owners of France Building Services. France is a janitorial company employing nearly 600 people. Since 2007, we grew from 1.5 million to more than 20 million in annual revenue and built what I think is one of the best teams in the world. The goal of Elite BSC and this podcast is to give owners in the industry a vision of where their company can be and the information and tools to get there. I want to share what I have learned over the years to make this a reality for you. Hey, janitorial business owners, it's Jordan Tong, your host. So today we're going to talk about a topic that I think it's a good one. I think it's something that's applicable to so many, particularly you all that are struggling with growing and asking the question, why are we not growing? You're not where you want to be and in your company, and that's frustrating for you. And you would like to figure out how you can get there. Like, what is it that's holding you back? What are the reasons that, like, your goal, like, you want to be, let's say you're at 1 million and you want to be at 2 or 3 million, but like, it's just not happening. You take a few steps forward, then a few steps back, and there's no moving forward, it feels like. Or maybe you're smaller and you're trying to get to that next plateau, and it's just not happening, and you're frustrated because maybe you can't put your hand on what it is that's actually causing this lack of growth. So I don't think that there's a silver bullet answer, and I think the reasons could be varied across the board. But as I look at my own experience running a commercial cleaning company, and then I also look at, the 100 plus other business owners that we work with through Elite BSC, there's some commonalities that I see in those people who seem to struggle to grow. And if I had some of those people on who are my friends, they would likely say, yes, you are correct. This definitely, I am guilty of this. So I've got 3 reasons that I think could be factors preventing you from growing your commercial cleaning company. So these certainly are not the only reasons of what could be happening, but these are certainly common reasons. And if we can button these up a little bit and improve upon them, I think that you'll be able to make some headway. It's often multifaceted in terms of why you're not growing. I think there's a little bit of an easy solution, I guess, regarding that. But it's often multifaceted, the things that are maybe barriers or roadblocks to growing your janitorial company. So, and I think the more of those we can knock down, the more we're going to be in a position to grow like we want to as an organization. So let's look at these reasons here. So the first one is, and this one's possibly the most intuitive and obvious, is that what I often see is that people are so focused on the operation and getting the operations piece of the organization, in place and making sure it's running smoothly and you're not having major issues and not losing customers. And so there's this heavy emphasis on getting the operations right. And because of the whirlwind of issues that happen along the way, we're hesitant to grow. It sort of gives us a bit of a pause or trepidation in growing because we're afraid that if we grow, it's only going to put a magnifying glass on the problems that we already have. It's only going to make our problems exponentially worse. And so we often will let our foot off of the gas pedal of growth in an effort to get the operation right. And we're like, okay, when I can finally get the operation right, then I'll try to grow. And there's a sense in where this is true, and I don't want that to be missed. Like, there is a sense in where you do need to have some operational strength to be able to build upon, to be able to grow with you. But there's also a sense in where you cannot be perfect. So let's say that there's a single guy. He's wanting to get married and find a good wife, and he said, but before I do that, I want to be the ideal man for somebody, like in all the qualities and virtues and all the things that a wife would be looking for. Well, he's never going to to get all the way there, and if he continues to pursue that before he jumps in and tries to find a wife, it's not going to go well for him. Like he's going to be sitting there trying to work on it forever, and he's going to find himself being 50 and single and never made any headway. And it's sort of the same sort of thing. Like we don't want the perfect to be the enemy of the good, and so I think we want to push for growth after we have some level of security in our operation, but it does need to be perfect, and it can even be full of flaws. Now, if you are losing business out the back door constantly, so like if you're constantly losing customers, that probably is a hole or a leak in the operation that you do need to plug before you put a significant emphasis on growth. But if that's not happening, then I would encourage you to shift your emphasis a bit to growing, to where the emphasis is on, hey, we're pushing, and our objective and our main goal is to grow. This is what we're wanting to do as an organization. So I think this is probably the most common, what I see, the way I would describe it often, and I have in other videos and webinars that I've done, is that in order to grow the business in the long term, you have to always keep your foot on the gas pedal of growth. And no matter what's going on in the organization, no matter what you're struggling with, you've got to keep pushing in that direction, because often growth, while it can magnify problems, it can also help with problems that you have, because sometimes scale adds some efficiencies and gives you some relief in some areas in the organization, and that scale happens when we grow. So that's reason number one. Reason number two, and this one may or may not be an issue, but one of the things that I always see is companies that struggle to grow, they are often run by somebody who is a micromanager of the organization, or is somebody who is maybe unwilling to let go. So they're trying to keep their hands around everything in the organization, whether it's operations or sales or finance. Like they're trying to be the person to keep their arms around everything. And if you've been in business long enough, and if you have grown, that this is not possible. And actually, owners can often become the limiting factor in the growth of their business, because a business, if you're going to maintain that sort of control, the business will only grow to the point that you can continue to control things, which certainly has a limit on it. Now, some people, that may be a little bit higher limit than others, but it definitely has a limit. So what can happen is, if the owner is trying to micromanage everything and they're unwilling to give the freedom for people to grow the business, for operations to do their own thing, it forces this pressure in the organization that seems to stifle growth a bit. So what I often see in these companies that struggle to grow is often an owner that's also has a difficulty with letting go or knowing how to do that. So I think if we can avoid this pitfall and maybe push ourselves toward developing a team and delegating effectively, and maybe learning how to be a good steward of your organization and maintain the right kind of control of certain things, but also handing some of that off and giving the business freedom to be able to do its thing. And that's part of what leadership ultimately is, I believe. Okay, so that is the first two. So the first possible hindrance to growth is that you're trying to get operations right and you're not focusing or putting an emphasis on selling. Number two is that the owner could be micromanaging things, and this is putting a restraint on the organization. And the last one is that the last reason you may not be growing is that you could be taking on the wrong kinds of accounts. So and I've seen this happen over the years, I saw it firsthand in our own organization for a short period of time, and I've seen it in others. There are certain kinds of business that help your company to grow, and by grow, I mean like there's this ongoing percentage increase in total revenue of the organization over the course of a year, 2 years, 3 years, that sort of thing. And some accounts are not conducive to that happening. So one obvious example is when we grow by doing one-time projects. So let's say post-construction cleans or a strip and wax job. And let's say those are not associated with a cleaning contract. Yes, there is a temporary surge in revenue that comes into the organization. But also it's not consistent ongoing revenue. And so like you get the surge and then it goes away and you have to find more in order to maintain the status quo. So I think it's really difficult, and unless you're set up with a unique business model in our industry, I think it's difficult to grow consistently over time by project work. Now, we certainly do project work as part of our arsenal of services, and it's part of what makes up our revenue. But that's always an offshoot or an ancillary thing to the main contracts that we're selling that are ongoing. So these one-time jobs, not only do they take a lot of energy and effort from a sales standpoint to let's get them done, and we're putting sales effort and energy into getting those accounts or those projects. But then also operationally, like it can drain the life out of your operations and pull them away from other things that are important. So I think that can be a hindrance. Also, in kind of in a similar vein would be small accounts. So one-time projects, I think certainly if that becomes an emphasis, can drag down the growth rate of the organization. But I also think that small accounts can as well, because there's a sense in where every small account that you're getting, as opposed to something bigger. So when I say small account, let's say you're taking a 2-day-a-week account that's $400 a month or $500 a month versus a 5-day-a-week account that's $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month. And the smaller account still requires startup effort, still requires hiring, still requires buying supplies and managing and dealing with a customer. And we've talked about this in other podcasts, but it requires a lot of effort and energy. And so if I'm selling accounts that are a bit larger than you, let's say you're selling $500 a month accounts and I'm selling $3,000 a month accounts, well, I'm going to be able to grow at a much faster rate than you. Now, sure, the quantity of prospects that I can go after is smaller than yours at the $500 rate. But I think my ability to scale is also going to be easier than yours with the larger accounts. So I'm happy to argue with you about that. I know that there are some people that have a bit different opinion on this, but for most companies that I've seen that sort of break through the growth plateaus of $1 million, $2 million in annual revenue, the sizes of accounts start to ratchet up. And if they're not doing that, they will tend to struggle to grow if there's still a pretty good emphasis on trying to land the smaller accounts. So, and one of the things that can help with this too is, and we'll talk about this maybe on another podcast, but is how you compensate your salespeople. And you want to make sure that you're driving the kind of sales behavior that you want out of somebody. So we'll talk about that on another podcast, maybe in the next few weeks. So I hope this is helpful. If you want more resources, you can go over to elitebsc.com. We got tons of stuff over there, and I'd encourage you to join our mastermind group. We talk about this stuff a lot, and what's really cool is there's 150 people that are doing and living out this stuff that we're talking about on this podcast. It's an amazing group of people and friends, and I'd encourage you to check it out. If you ever need anything from me, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to address any follow-up stuff. My email address is jordan@elitebsc.com, and we'll see you next time. If you found the information in this podcast helpful, please like and subscribe on whatever podcast platform that you're using. If you would like more resources or help to grow your cleaning company, head over to elitebsc.com. We have loads of articles, videos, free tools, coaching options, and a lot more. If your company is greater than $500K in revenue and you want to take your learning experience to the next level, check out our mastermind group. You can learn more about that at elitebsc.com/mastermind.